Hello, you're watching Tell It Like It Is, and my name is Kathy Benuck. Now, our show today is called Race for County Attorney, and it's a three-part series on this year's race for the Hillsborough County Attorney position, in which we have three candidates. The incumbent, who's a Republican, and that's Dennis Hogan, and two Democratic opponents, Attorney Patricia LaFrance and Attorney Bob Walsh. And my guest right now is Attorney Patricia LaFrance, who everybody calls Patty, and she is one of the Democratic candidates. Patty was born and raised in Salem and currently resides in Hollis with her husband Paul and four kids ranging from 5 to 12 years old, so she's one busy lady. Since 2001, she has served as a felony prosecutor with the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office, literally prosecuting thousands of felonies, including those individuals accused of child abuse, child molestation, serial rapes, and domestic violence abusers. So she's seen it all. She also served for 18 months as the first assistant county attorney responsible for the operations of the Nashua branch of the county attorney's office. She's conducted numerous trainings for local police departments, for the Police Standard and Training Council, for the New Hampshire Bar Association, for DCYF, I kind of transpose those letters, and for the Child Advocacy Center. And she's appeared before the New Hampshire legislature to oppose the closure of the Nashua Superior Courthouse, which was a successful effort, and was also an aggressive advocate for the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. Prior to attending law school, she herself was a volunteer guardian ad litem for the CASA, the Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and she currently serves as vice president of the Granite State Children's Alliance, which oversees 4 child advocacy centers here in New Hampshire. And she also, for them, serves as its outreach and education committee chairman. Now, Patty has received an awful lot of endorsements for this race, including those from the Manchester Police Patrolmen's Association, the Manchester Association of Police Supervisors, the Nashua Police Patrolmen's Association, the Nashua Police Supervisors Union, the Hudson Police Employee Association, retired Nashua Police Chief David Conley, and probably lots more that I haven't listed. So, with all of that, I now want you to meet Patty LaFrance.
Thank you.
So nice to have you here,
meet you.
Patty, and I'm sure you're in the middle now of a very aggressive campaign.
I am. I just wanted to make one correction. It's Chief Donald Conley.
I'm sorry. What did I say, David?
David.
And
that's
I probably have it written down as Donald. I do. I have it written as Donald.
I don't want to give him the wrong name.
I know it. If he listens, he wouldn't like that
Right.
too much. Well, you're a parent yourself of young kids, and I mean, to me, it must be tough for you dealing with some of the facts of some of these felonies that you prosecute. It's got to be a tough job.
It is tough, and I'm a fierce advocate for child victims in particular, but obviously all victims that I see, domestic violence, abuse victims, even victims of theft and burglary. I always keep in the back of my mind that while sometimes it becomes routine for a prosecutor, I've prosecuted hundreds and hundreds of cases, to that victim, hopefully it's the first and only time they're a victim. So it's new to them, it's a little bit frightening, they don't understand the process, so I always try to keep that in the back of my mind, and particularly with child victims. That's one of the reasons why I'm on the board of directors of the Granite State Children's Alliance. And certainly as a mother, but just as a human being, seeing a victim that is a child is particularly heartbreaking. So I especially enjoy advocating for child victims, because I always have in the back of my mind that my children. So
of course. And I mean, we as civilians, so to speak, when we read the little bit that will be in the newspaper account or whatever, it's so cringeworthy sometimes. And obviously so much that goes on in the courtroom will never make it to the newspaper for privacy reasons and every other reason. Right. So, I mean, I can't imagine, it has to be awful. And as you say, I mean, you're not just really trying to fulfill the law, but you're their person. I mean, it's up to you to give them some sense of justice in this world.
Oh, right. And, that's, again, when I meet with a child victim, I always keep that in the back of my mind. And many times, maybe, all I can do is listen to them. And that's sometimes what they need. And
sure.
you know, sometimes, you know, after we talk to a child, and even if it's not the result we really wanted, just the fact that they were able to get out and they know somebody believes them, that is fulfilling as well.
Be huge, because
Yes.
without that, how could they ever get on with their lives?
Right, right.
You know? Do you want to talk about any of the cases that you've dealt with as a prosecutor?
Well, I've had, you know, obviously I've had hundreds and hundreds of cases, and you know, some stick out. Most of the child sexual abuse cases, it's difficult to talk about because they're
Of course.
you know, confidentiality, you know, but I've had many child victims. And, but you know, there's a couple of cases, I guess, that kind of stand out in your mind for different reasons. What we do in the county attorney's office, and the cases that we see, some of them are very tragic, but some of them can have just some elements that are kind of unbelievable and not humorous, because it's never humorous when somebody's a victim of a felony. But you know, I had a defendant recently. I had convicted him of theft, and his case actually went all the way to the United States Supreme Court.
Really?
And yeah, last November. So myself and the officer who arrested him went down. Attorney General Delaney actually argued the case, but we went to observe the oral arguments, because it's just a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing for a lawyer to have a case go all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And that person, 2 weeks after he was released from prison, and actually he was released 3 days before the oral arguments, and 2 weeks after that, he broke into somebody's house.
Amazing.
And I recently convicted him a few weeks ago, and now he's back in prison for 7.5 to 15 years. But, you know, he kind of, a strange fact of that case was he rode his bike to the house he burglarized, and he took his bike, and he had taken so much stuff. He wanted this big screen TV. He actually called a cab home from the house he had burglarized, and it was the cab driver who ended up making the identification of him a very solid identification. So you know, you get cases like that, just kind of strange facts, and again, like I said, it's never funny when somebody's a victim, but just kind of strange facts that really kind of make it stick out to a jury as well.
Of course.
So
yeah, and sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
It really is.
I mean, you probably heard about it, because I think it made all the news a couple of years back in Methuen, which of course is just across the line.
Right.
Somebody got it into his head to rob a bank, and he was on a bicycle, and he rode the bicycle home and parked it in front of the house.
Yeah.
Well, of course, everybody saw the bicycle, and all kinds of bystanders saw the bicycle, and all the bank employees saw the bicycle.
Right.
So, I mean, he wasn't home 10 minutes, and he was in handcuffs.
Yeah.
And
you
didn't
know,
have a clue how they found him. I mean, that was the best part of the whole thing. It's like, how did they know?
Yeah, and you know, like I said, there are cases we get like that where sometimes you just have to scratch your head and say, what were they thinking? And you know, but a crime's a crime, and that's my job as a prosecutor, to prosecute and hopefully get a good result for the victim.
Absolutely. Did you ever regret going into that kind of work? I mean, were there
Absolutely
nights
not.
you went home and kind of banged your head and said, why?
No, because, you know, and certainly there have been frustrating moments. Some, you know, not guilties, not a lot, but there have been some that have been frustrating. But, you know, sometimes I'll get a letter from a victim. I just recently got a card from a victim of sexual abuse.
Really?
She was graduating from high school, just a beautiful girl. Just a card to let me know that she was graduating. Get Christmas cards sometimes from
That's nice.
Yeah, and it really, I stick them up on my wall to remind me. I got a really nice letter from a juror in a rape case I did in Manchester a few years back, myself and the other prosecutor, and it was just very complimentary, and it reminds me of why I do what I do. So it's just kind of, when I need my batteries recharged, you know, I look at those and say, of course, I know why I'm doing this.
Well, your work has an impact, a huge impact on people's lives.
I hope so,
Oh,
in a good way.
I think so. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe not in a good way for the perpetrators, but that's okay.
No, that's okay.
We don't want them happy.
I like to say I have a growing fan base up in the New Hampshire State Prison, and I'm okay with that.
Well, hopefully none of them will see the show, because we don't really care that they see the show.
Well, you know, it's funny sometimes. I have victims say to me, well, I don't want to be responsible for putting them in prison. And I have to remind them, you're not putting them in prison. They're putting themselves in prison. They committed the crime. You did nothing wrong. And sometimes hearing me say that, it's a relief for them, because, you know, hopefully that will help them get over the fact that they didn't do anything wrong. The perpetrator did.
Of course. Yeah, and you have to have that attitude.
Right.
Well, now what made you decide right now, this year, to run for this office?
Well, we've had kind of an upheaval since Marguerite Wagling left. She was an amazing county attorney. She had been a lifelong prosecutor like myself, or career-long prosecutor, I should say. She was an assistant county attorney, went up to the Attorney General's office, then became county attorney when Attorney Coughlin left to serve in Iraq. And that was back in, I think, 2003 or 2004. And she became a judge, and we were all very happy for her. But she ran a good office. She was always complimenting us and giving us encouragement. And I've just seen morale go down. And, you know, I realized that that office needs somebody who understands what the office is, understands what it means to be a prosecutor and advocate for victims of crime. It's not just a paycheck. It's not a stepping stone to another political office. You really have to have a passion for that position in order to effectively run that office, because you're, you know, everybody's looking up to you as the county attorney. And if you don't have that passion, then how can you kind of bestow it or inspire the assistant county attorneys? And I haven't seen that in the past few years. So I do have that passion. This is, like I said, my life, you know, my career work, and it's truly what I enjoy. I do have a passion for it, and that's why I'm running. We need a leader in that office, somebody who knows what it takes to be a prosecutor. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't believe Dennis ever worked in the prosecution end of it, did he? Okay.
No.
Okay. Are there, you know, specific deficiencies, you know, aside from that you'd point to that you'd want to change? Or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've lost 3 attorney positions in the past couple of years to budget cuts. And I believe part of that is not being able to advocate properly for the office to say, and understanding in a recession, sure, people want to cut budgets, but we have not seen a decrease in workload.
Well,
we're not
sure.
a manufacturing plant who, you know, maybe the demand is less than what it was 5-10 years ago. We're still seeing the same amount of cases. So to lose 3 prosecutor positions when we only have, you know, now we have 19. So that's huge. And, you know, like I said, our caseload has not gone down. We've lost a victim advocate position. Victim advocates are such a key position in our office, and so we need somebody to make the legislature understand these are critical parts to this office. You know, we're not a giant office comparatively speaking to other, you know, district attorneys' offices in the United States. You know, we don't have hundreds of attorneys. We have a very limited number. And, you know, we are the largest county in New Hampshire, so with the 2 largest cities, so we do see a lot of cases.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
So there's, what, 19 attorneys, right?
Yeah, as of now, yes.
And
then there's
that's
one
covering
part-time.
both Manchester and Nashua.
Right, right.
Any idea of how many cases actually come
It's probably,
through?
you know, we probably carry about 100 cases at a time.
Each?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Any idea how many a year? That's got to be a staggering
Oh boy,
number
I know
overall.
just from my experience as first assistant and as being a prosecutor, you know, any month I have probably an average of about 10 new cases a month. So that's about 120 cases
And that's a
year.
lot on a complicated case.
Right.
And I mean, the things you're prosecuting, obviously, a lot of them have lots of complications.
Yeah, they're felony level offenses.
Yeah.
And besides that, we have probation violations on older cases that we might have pled out. You know,
didn't
we
even
have
think of
other.
that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we have probation violations. We might have motions coming from defendants who have been incarcerated. They filed new motions for a new trial. So there's always, you know,
Sure.
you can close a case, but it's never really closed.
Sure.
You know, there could always be something kind of cropping up later on down the line. So we
Sure.
deal
And
with
if there
all
are
those things.
appeals, you kind of get dragged back into that process as well, right?
Well, the attorney generals handle the appeals process. So
But there'd still
they-
be some work
Yeah, I mean,
responsibility for whoever prosecuted.
It's sometimes if
Yeah.
they
So
if they
at
had
least update
questions
everybody
about
or
the
whatever,
case,
yeah.
but they handle, you know, they handle the appellate stage of the process.
So basically, though, the county attorney's office handles everything but murder, right?
Yeah, just about. And you know, there are some cases, drug cases, for instance, can be handled actually by, depending on the severity. It could be handled by our office. It could be handled by the Attorney General's narcotics unit, or actually sometimes it could go up to the
Federal level.
Yeah. So it depends,
Yeah.
you know, on the
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah.
If it's a vast amount,
Yeah.
then the feds will probably want to take it. And,
Yeah,
you
if
know,
somebody's
it's-
caught with a couple of $1 million worth of something,
Yes,
I'm sure the
yes,
feds are
I
right
think,
there. Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Wow. Now, what if you are elected? Do you have changes in mind right away that you'd try to implement?
Yeah, I mean, I want to work on training and making sure that our prosecutors are kept up to date. I've already made some contacts with people who I said, hey, would you be willing to come in and give a talk? I met a gentleman the other day who is a professor. He works with autistic and developmental disability, children with developmental disabilities. And, sometimes those are the children, sadly, that are targeted for sexual abuse. And it always helps
Now,
as a
why would that be?
prosecutor.
Because they can't really
Just
fight back the same way or articulate?
Somebody's going to go for what I guess they would perceive as the weaker, victim.
It'd be harder for them to articulate what
Right,
happened.
right. I mean, people tend to choose what they perceive as weaker. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're very aggressive, but it certainly would help. As prosecutors, any little bit of information to help us. All right, how would we interview this person on the stand? Do we ask him different questions? What do we need to know? About the developmental disabilities. So items like that I want to implement more in our office, and also get out to the public. One of the things I love about the Granite State Children's Alliance is, as the chairperson of the Outreach and Education Committee, I get to go out and I can give trainings. I go out. Last year we went to the Milford Pumpkin Festival, just educating people about child safety, and because obviously the goal is to have somebody not be a victim, to prevent crime. It would be wonderful if I walked in tomorrow and they said, oh, you have to go home because there's no more crime. That's a lofty goal, but that's part of my goal as county attorney, is to do more interaction with the community, to hopefully, I won't prevent every single crime, but maybe if I get somebody to lock their car door, they won't.
The simple things.
Right, right. So I'm looking forward to doing that as well, and seeking other alternative sources of funding, grants and stuff like that. So
I would think too, another important thing would be educating people on the signs, how to recognize.
Right.
Because obviously kids sometimes won't tell anybody.
Yeah.
But there have to be physical or psychological changes that we all need to be aware of.
Oh yeah, and educating not just parents, but educators, child daycare workers.
Yeah.
And I'm always getting requests whenever I go out to any of the outreach activities for the Granite State Children's Alliance. I'm always getting requests. To come to a school, can they come here? Or,
Speak
I'm
to the
on the
teachers
parent-teacher
and such,
group.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. So everybody,
yeah, because they're right on the
wants
front
to,
lines with the kids.
Right, and everybody wants tools to help prevent child abuse. I mean, nobody wants to let it happen under their watch. So wherever anybody will have me, I would go and give a talk.
That's
and
true.
Even with police departments, I've conducted a lot of trainings with police departments as well. I'm working on another one for police standards and trainings. So I really enjoy getting out and just educating people. I do like talking and educating people. So
how much have you, and I mean, we keep seeing TV shows, whether it's Law and Order or whatever, or, hearing talk. How much has the whole computer world, for lack of a better description, I mean, obviously there are people trolling the internet and all the different social communication places to find potential victims for themselves. Are you seeing a lot of that can be actually identified, that these people are actually doing it, that parents need to be a lot more aware? Well,
we've seen, actually what I've seen is kind of a disturbing trend. A few years ago, we knew it was happening, and they were undercover officers, like the TV show There to Catch a Predator. The undercover officers would pose as 14-year-old girls and then arrange a meeting, and the person would show up. We were prosecuting a lot of those. Different towns had different undercover officers working on that. But lately, we've seen actual girls meeting people over the internet. So yeah, it's always good to be vigilant, and we. Of course, as parents, we don't think the internet, it's just a box, and you wouldn't let a stranger into your daughter's bedroom, but that's essentially what you do when you have a webcam, and and so it's that's one of my goals, is again to keep that training and getting out and getting the word out to the public.
I actually heard somebody on TV, and please, I'm sorry, I can't say who because I don't remember. But within the past week, I did hear somebody who was an expert in some of these fields, and actually he looked right in the camera, and he said, he said, you would not leave your front door unlocked in the middle of the night, all night, every night. And he said, but I want to tell you something. Every time your kid turns on a computer, you just opened your front door.
Right.
And, you know, when it's put that way, it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is scary.
You know, I went to a training at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NECMEC we call it, and I heard something that amazed me, that child pornography, what we now call child sexual abuse images, was almost eradicated until the internet came along. It amazed me. And now, sadly, we've seen
it's
a
huge
proliferation.
Now. It's huge.
Yep.
And I mean, people making obscene amounts of money on it to boot.
Yeah, and I've prosecuted some of those cases, and it's horrifying to see as a parent of young children, and it's just so heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I guess some of it's generating from different countries where it's really become a big business.
Yes. Yes.
Unbelievable. Let me ask you this. Do you think with, you know, the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office obviously covers the two biggest cities, Nashua and Manchester. Do you think that the Hillsborough County office is a lot different than the other county attorney offices in the state because of that, just the sheer numbers and populations you're dealing with?
No, I mean, you know, we're all obviously prosecuting the same crimes,
right.
And I think most of the other counties have one major city. You know, Cheshire has Keene, Belknap has Laconia, Merrimack has Concord, and Rockingham has Portsmouth, I think, right? So, you know, they all have kind of that major city element to it. But I don't, you know, maybe the volume, if anything, is more. That's
well,
it. And,
yeah, that would make sense just because of the numbers, So
that's
but
the only difference I could see.
Really?
And, yeah, I mean, crime, you know, any type of crime really could happen anywhere, particularly, you know, child abuse can happen anywhere.
Oh, I know.
And
I know.
that's why, you know, the Granite State Children's Alliance, we try to reach out to, now we're Cheshire and Belknap because we're overseeing the CACs there as well, the Child Advocacy Centers there. So we're trying to reach out to those communities as well and do some education out there.
So do you think basically the challenges are the same here? Or do you think they might be a little bit bigger?
I think they're probably a little bigger just because of the volume. We have, certainly we have the highest level of cases, the highest amount of cases between our, you know, the two offices, Manchester and Nashua. You know, we're the only county, obviously, with two superior courthouses. And, you know, I guess we have, you know, Nashua and Manchester are so accessible from Massachusetts. We have that element. You know, we see a lot of people coming up from Lawrence and Lowell to commit crimes, sell drugs. We see shoplifting rings actually coming from Lawrence and Lowell. So
I've been noticing that a lot reading the paper, the addresses from that area.
And
I actually, I'm a native of Lawrence. That's where I grew up. And Lawrence, I have to tell you, was a whole lot different when I was growing up. I mean, it used to be a nice city. You know, along with Nashua and Manchester and Lowell and so on. But obviously times have changed dramatically down there. And then it's kind of a scary place now.
Yeah, and that's, we certainly see that element coming up through, you know, Nashua. So.
Yeah, and because there's always been a tie.
Right.
But I mean, now it's unfortunately a negative tie.
Yeah.
Incredible. If money were not an issue, all right, and you were elected, and money absolutely was not an issue, that, you know, either we all came into some great fortune or the county commissioners were like, woohoo, let's spend. What would you try to do? What would be your goal? What would be your bucket list, I guess, for the office?
I think I would definitely hire more prosecutors and victim advocates and support staff. Because we are just, you know, we're barely keeping our heads above water. You know, we're just, there's such a high caseload for each attorney. And that in turn, you know, falls on the victim advocates and the support staff. So definitely hire more people. But also what costs a lot of money too is expert testimony. And, you know, we see sometimes jurors are so conditioned with CSI and, you know, they want all this forensic evidence or expert testimony, and we do still see kind of a misunderstanding with jurors about, say, the natures of child abuse, why a child might not disclose. So I would, you know, definitely try to get more money put towards expert testimony, and that's, you know, I don't think it's going to happen. I would love to have an unlimited budget, but as county attorney, I'm also looking into, okay, what are some, instead of paying $3,000 for an expert in child abuse, maybe we can network with some other agency and get expert testimony for, a bargain price in exchange for something that we can offer them. So there's certainly people out there who would be willing to do it, especially when it comes to child abuse. But it just hasn't really been looked at. So that's one of the things I intend to do as well.
I would think that, some of these TV shows, I mean, obviously, as a layperson, some of them you watch and you find them interesting, Law and Order or any of them, and they're very popular shows. But I would think that they must cause problems for the real life people who actually have to work in these fields, because the average citizen kind of forgets it still is Hollywood,
right.
On these TV shows or movies. In real life, obviously, it's a lot different.
We have a term for it. It's called the CSI effect. Juries, sometimes we feel they're expecting, in a purse snatching, there's going to be DNA and fingerprints. And it doesn't work like that.
No, of course not.
It's Hollywood. And, crimes aren't solved in 10 minutes and then the trial happens the next day. And it's not like that. It can be sometimes a long process, depending on the complexity of the case.
Oh yeah, sometimes it can be years.
Right. Hopefully not too often, but probably about a year for the more serious cases. So yeah, we definitely battle that. And I actually had a defense attorney ask an officer on the stand why he didn't do something the way they did on TV. I'm not sure if that was a real question or just trying to play to the jury, but I couldn't believe it when I heard that question.
Wow. I just glanced at the clock thinking we had loads of time left, and we don't. So I will not ask you another thing, and I wish I had looked sooner. But you're so interesting to talk to. But right now, it's your turn. Look at that camera and tell people why Patty for county attorney this year.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't about political party. Never once in my career have I had a victim ask me what political party I belong to. They want to know that I'm going to fight for them. And for the past almost 11 years, I have been fighting for victims of crime, and for the past 9 years, I've been fighting for victims in Hillsborough County. And when you choose the top prosecutor in the county, it should be a person who not only is experienced in prosecuting felony crimes, but also somebody who has a demonstrated record of working with the police departments. The police departments and the county attorney's office are partners in making sure that the people of Hillsborough County are kept safe. And I would ask you to vote for me, Patricia LaFrance, for Hillsborough County Attorney. Thank you.
That was fantastic. You can tell you're a prosecutor and used to
closing argument.
Closing argument, brief and to you certainly did, brief and to the point, and not getting that judge up on that bench angry either. Phenomenal. It was such a delight to meet you, and you're fascinating to talk to. And one way or another, I'd love to have you back. Because you have a lot of good stories to tell.
Thank you. I would love to come back. Thank you for having me.
Well, best of luck on the campaign.
Thank you.
Well, everybody, we are going right to the wire here, so I will close this saying thank you for watching. Again, we have had a terrific guest who knows how to tell it like it is, which is what this show's all about. You tell it like it is, and until next time, bye-bye.